Hi everyone! Welcome to my next video. I would like to talk about being authentic in this video. I've been thinking about that word for quite some time, especially since I've started my channel, because I've been honored and humbled by being called authentic. And I have reached a point in my life where I embrace my authenticity, but it was a long journey to get here. Because for years, I didn't think my authenticity had any value. And I wonder if that's why so many people today are not. And I'm very curious to hear what any of you think. And when I was younger, I don't remember anybody ever mentioning that word, authentic. I do remember the quest for finding ourselves, and that was the term, finding ourselves, and searching for meaning and all of that. But it was never a question of being authentic. And I believe people were more authentic back in the 60s and the 70s. We voiced our opinions, we voiced our passions, we voiced our true feelings more than people do today. And perhaps that's because of the internet. But I think there's something else going on. And it almost causes me to be a little fearful. Because as this world progresses and the younger generations become involved in the workforce, I think being authentic is becoming frowned upon, because there's incredible pressure to fit in, to make a living, to pay the bills, to be that professional in a career that does not need your authenticity. It needs your skills. It needs what you can bring to the table, not as who you are as a person, but for the job that you perform. I hope that makes sense. And that really worries me, because with the upcoming AI, as it infiltrates our lives even more so day to day, there is nothing authentic about AI at all. And as more and more people embrace this false reality and false mindset, or mind, because it's an imitation mind, I fear that being authentic will be even more falling by the wayside. And sometimes I wonder if I'm still here in 20 years as an old lady creating YouTube videos. Will people think I'm strange because I'm authentic? Will I become one of the very few remaining authentic creators? Because right now there are many out there, and I enjoy watching them for that very reason. And most of them, oddly enough, I think are women, but perhaps that's just my random discovery of these channels. Maybe it's both, I'm not sure. I do enjoy quite a few YouTube channels with men living off-grid, living on their own, traveling. And I look for those types of characters and traits, because I admire that. I admire authenticity. And every time I read a comment that is complimentary to me because I am authentic, it makes me think even more about it, because I don't want to be in the minority being authentic, yet I feel that that is the case. And yes, there are many other YouTubers, and I mentioned many are women who I watch, and they are very real, and they share their thoughts and their feelings with no reservation whatsoever. And my goal, as always, as I've mentioned before, is to do the same, but not just share my honest and true feelings, but share my positive spirit and my positive outlook to inspire all of you. And my authenticity is to be just that. Now, I was always this way, even as far back as a little girl. And if any of you have read my memoir, there was a huge conflict within my mind because my authentic self was not welcome. It was not viewed important, and it was frowned upon. And I wonder if that is the case today, and that people, especially those younger than me, are finding being authentic almost impossible because it's becoming an inauthentic world. And isn't that sad? Isn't that tragic? But even more so, I think it's scary because inauthentic structures and mindsets and societies will designate authentic people as possibly becoming irrelevant. And I say this because I think authenticity already is a threat to those who are not authentic. And maybe it's the society and the world view of the materialism and the money and the status that has nothing to do with authenticity at all, but everything to do with power and greed. Now, sometimes I think ahead and I picture myself years later because I love my channel and I plan to do this for the rest of my life and continue to be my true self because each and every video is just that. But here's another concerning factor that it perplexes me and I don't understand it. And I wonder if some of you have noticed this. Because there are quite a few channels talking about this, being authentic. And there are quite a few channels, to my surprise and my shock, trying to teach people how to be authentic. And I don't understand that. I think, are you kidding me? People need to learn how to be authentic. Am I so far removed from society, living out here in the woods by myself, that I have lost touch with what's really going on? And people are trying to learn how to be authentic because they've forgotten. And please tell me if that's the case, because that is shocking to me. And it's also very alarming to me. And it's also sad. And there's one YouTube creator in particular, and they're very successful. And they help a lot of people. And they teach a lot about creating YouTube videos. Because apparently authenticity is becoming more and more valued. And why? Because authenticity is becoming more rare. And that to me, again, is astounding. Now, you don't teach someone to be authentic. I believe the way to be authentic is to get rid of all the inauthentic things and inauthentic thoughts and fears. And I'm thinking maybe that's why people are afraid, because it is a fear. Will they be accepted for who they really are? Will they receive criticism for showing their true selves? Because it's a whole lot safer if you pretend to be somebody and you get criticized. Because then you can say, well, that's okay, that's not really who I am anyway, so they can't hurt me. But what a sad way to live. And I lived that way. And I was miserable. Because I was in a conflicted state for years, having to be all of the parts of society that was not true to myself, true to my nature. And when I finally discovered and realized that that's what I'd been doing, and I broke free from that, I can't even explain how freeing that felt. And I put down all of that heavy weight of trying to be this inauthentic self, and I set myself free. And that's what it felt like. It felt like I lifted all the rocks that I had been carrying off the top of my head, and I put them all down, and I felt as light as air. And myself just blossomed into being the self it always wanted to be, and always was, but was always confined by my fears, My fears of not fitting in, my fears of being judged, my fears of being criticized, and my fears of not living up to whatever standard I was trying to live up to. And so, for any of you who fear being authentic, and I talked about this in my video about living inside out, because when you live inside out, when you allow yourself to shine for who you truly are, because there is only one you, no one else can ever be like you, and if they try to be like you, consider it a compliment, because they see something in you that they want to be like, and maybe who you really are, and by being who you really are, gives them the courage to be who they know they are, but they're afraid to try. And years ago, it was very common to hear the phrase, searching for who we really are, searching for ourselves. And I remember that very well. But people were more open back then, and of course that was before the internet. We openly discussed our hopes and dreams and our fears. And I don't know why that is, why it was so different back then, but I miss that. And I think the internet has created such a false reality in and of itself that it's made it easier to create our false personas. Yet all the while, I wonder if these people creating their false personas are truly happy in doing so, because I was not. And I hear many times on my channel, and I thank you all, because you compliment me by my authenticity. And you also say off and on that it is becoming more and more rare. And that makes me sad, because I don't want people to be a rarity in this world, being authentic. But I'm going to continue to shine my light and be who I am, because that's all I can do. But what else I can do is encourage everyone else to be true to yourself too. Don't let fear hold you back. And if people want to criticize, consider that a compliment, because criticism comes from fear. Judgment comes from fear and insecurity and perhaps envy, because what they're seeing in you is what they don't have. So be proud of who you are. Be proud of all your imperfections, because sure, I have a good lot of them, and I've talked about many of them on my channel, and I'd be happy to share more. One of them is I used to have a temper. I can be very impatient. I'm not good dealing with people who have worked for me in the past, because I want everyone to work as hard as I do, and I get frustrated when they don't. And I don't know if I'll ever change. I think that's just the way I am. And if I ever do have a rescue and have people working for me, that's going to be my biggest challenge, to learn to be more patient, to be more understanding, and to be more tolerant. And that will probably be a lifelong challenge for me. And I so readily admit to it, because why not, right? And so I wonder if any of you have a different view on being authentic and how you see the world evolving. And I am in fear, and I'm not fearful of very much. I am in fear of this world becoming more and more driven by false realities, false personas, and false perceptions to meet the needs of achieving wealth, monetary gain, status, and attention. And I certainly hope that authenticity never goes out of style, because that is who we are as people. And if we lose our sense of our authentic selves, then we lose the sense of our own personality and our own well-being and our own purpose. And that, to me, would be a very empty life. And I wonder sometimes if that's why people are so miserable, or people who are miserable, because they can't find that spot for them in society where they're accepted for who they are. And I remember years ago when I was overwhelmed and I didn't know what to do and I didn't fit in anywhere. And I remember this feeling so very well. And it worked for me, and it might work for you, I'm not sure. But this goes way back to my 40s, when nothing I was doing seemed to be working. I was very distraught, very confused, very upset. So I thought back to when I was in school, in grade school. Now this goes way back, because we had those chalkboards at the front of the class, and anybody my age, you'll remember these, where the teacher stood up there and they held a piece of chalk, white chalk or yellow, and they wrote on the board whatever the lesson was. And when the lessons were over, they picked up the eraser and they just wiped clean that board and wiped everything off that board for the next lesson. And I remembered that, and I like that same analogy, because when I was overwhelmed in my 40s and I had all these things going wrong in my life and I didn't know what to do and I didn't know how to be authentic because nobody cared about my authentic self, and I realized that was because the situations were wrong, the relationships were wrong, the jobs were wrong. So in my mind, I took that eraser and I erased everything out of my life, just like that chalkboard. I erased the jobs, I erased the relationships, and I erased much of what I was doing in my life. And I decided, if I don't think anything's working, I'm just going to erase everything and start over. Get a clean new chalkboard and completely begin with something new. And that's what I did. And I decided that I would erase everything that was inauthentic in my life. And no matter what, no matter the criticisms, the problems, the issues, I was going to be myself, because I was sick and tired of pretending. And that was the best thing I ever did. And you're going to find that if you do that, there will be people who will resent you, who will not understand what the heck you did, because now you're being true to yourself. There will be people who are intimidated by you, and that's a big one, because people who are afraid to be themselves won't like you. They won't like you because you're mirroring back what they're unable to do. And please know that that can be in a very threatening position for them. And they may be people who you choose no longer to associate with, because people who are envious can do some very nasty things. And who needs that? But give yourself the gift of being authentic, whether you have a YouTube channel or not, whether you're in a relationship and you have felt that you have not been authentic to that relationship or to yourself, and see what happens when you give yourself that gift of authenticity. Because what you're doing is you're setting your spirit free, you're setting your soul free, and you're releasing all of that horrendous confinement to be yourself. And it's the most wonderful feeling in the world. And so that's one reason I love my YouTube channel. And that's one reason I can talk about anything, because I'm just being myself. And when you find your true voice and you don't care about criticism, you'll learn that criticism has nothing to do with you. but the person who's criticizing you. And you can even feel sad for them because they have not yet reached the point of being able to find that freedom. And they need to find that freedom in their own time, in their own way. So perhaps you can encourage them, you can inspire them by simply being an example. And I hope I can do that too, because being authentic can be scary, because this world cares less and less about authenticity. And each and every time someone reminds me that it's becoming rare, it makes me appreciative that I have the courage to hang on to who I am, because I will never change. I will never give up the gift of being true to myself. And when you're true to yourself, you give that gift to others. And I hope I'm doing that with my channel. So I hope I wasn't rambling. I feel very passionate about so much of what I talk about, especially this topic. And if you'd like me to talk more about this, I would love to. And if you have any questions or have any issues that you find as stumbling blocks to being true to yourself, I would love to hear them. And I think people who are still in the workforce may struggle with this even more, because everything is out in the open when you're online, when you have a channel. And you certainly cannot risk your career or your jobs by being maybe too real on your channel and divulging too much of yourself that may not be acceptable. And maybe that's why. But see, I think that's selling out. Because if you have to give up yourself for the sake of a job, then in my meager opinion, that's the wrong job. Because time is going to go by, and you're going to be losing all of that precious time giving yourself up for something that in the end is not worth it. So I hope this video had value to you. I would love to hear your questions and your comments and your suggestions. And what is going on with authenticity? What's happening in this world? I'm just out here in the woods. My only connection to the outside world is through my channel, and I'm learning a lot. And I also watch a lot of other channels as well, which I'm learning a lot from. And please let me know what you think about people who are learning how to be authentic. Is it because they've forgotten? Is it because they've been so much in the mindset of forgetting who they are, that who they really are is so deeply buried, and it's almost impossible to remember who they truly are? And I hope that made sense. So thank you so much, everyone. I so love talking about all these philosophical things, and I love to be an inspiration, a bright spot in your day. And please let me know all of your thoughts, all of your comments, ideas, suggestions. Take care, everyone, and I hope you're having a great day wherever you are in the world.